So I'm joined here today by Sean Laidlaw. I've known Sean as a mate for a good number of years now, but obviously, as mates do, we never really kind of talk about what we do, how we're doing, that kind of thing. And obviously, I've known Sean being in the army and being in the bomb disposal side of things. So I want to kind of have a bit of a catch up to see, yeah, kind of decision and about going into the army, obviously, why that particular field, and just kind of, yeah, discussing about life after that. So, Sean, if you want to kind of give a bit of insight about what he was doing previous and then going into bomb disposal.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I worked in London, as you do when you're 17, 18, living in Dagenham. London's the closest thing we got. So I took the opportunity as soon as I could to get up there and work. I'd done sort of college like any normal kid. I never went to university. I kind of realised in college that education wasn't for me, or full-time education in that sense wasn't for me. I just wouldn't get along with it. So I went into full-time work. And hated it. Absolutely hated it more than I hated school. And it got to the point where I thought, well, this can't be it. This can't be the next 60 to however long years. This is it. This can't be it. Of just going to London, going to work. It just wasn't me. And I didn't really know what to do or what I wanted to do. I've obviously, as a kid, you want to join the army, you want to be a pilot or all these things. And I kind of kept getting brought back to the army. So I went down my local recruiting office and had a chat with them, had some interviews and stuff. And you do a thing called a BARB test. And it tests like a multitude of things, but it basically spits out what jobs it thinks that you should do in the military. It gives you maybe like 20 options, depending on how you've sat the test. And one of the options was an engineer. I'm quite good at my hand. I'm quite good at sort of computers, sort of the multi-functional side of it all. It kind of fit in with what I wanted to do, what I thought I wanted to do anyway. So I selected a career in communications engineering, so BT, that sort of stuff basically, but in the army. The specific job role I went for was a combat communicator in the engineers. So on the front line, working with engineers and being the guy on the radio the whole time. I went to training, absolutely loved, well, basically love, hate. I absolutely loved it because I was pushed to limits I never even knew existed. I actually achieved stuff that I never thought I could. As cheesy as all that sounds and as advertised as that all seems in the British Army adverts, that's exactly what happened. I got to the end of that training, hated 80% of it, but come out a better person knowing that I've actually achieved this. And it was the first thing I actually achieved as a person.
Yeah.
Then I went to my second stage of training, which was engineers. So you get like a basic engineering course, which is about 14 weeks of solid engineering work. So like bricklaying, building water towers, building buildings, destroying buildings, building bridges, everything you need to be a basic engineer. And then off the back of that course, I was selected to do one of three things. And I chose out of those three things, bomb disposal. I mean, the guy came in and was like, "Do you want to go blow stuff up?" Like, yeah, cool. Right. Like, what 20-year-old kid wouldn't want to be running around blowing stuff up? It sounded great.
Yeah.
But like when you got into bomb disposal, it's very, very different. It's not like you go into bomb disposal and you do hurt locker. You don't go straight in and do that. There's a lot of different things that you do. I ended up going down the route of search. So the stuff I enjoyed was actually trying to find the bombs, not just disarming it. It's all about trying to find it, and that's a multitude of different areas. You got to be able to track. You got to be able to stand in an area and decide where would you put a device. And off the back of that, I ended up going down the route of IEDs because you've got like conventional munitions, which is your the bombs that fall out of planes or stuff that the British Army uses. Then you've got IEDs, which is the stuff that like you can make in your bathroom. That's the sort of stuff I like because it's unpredictable. You can hide it anywhere and it really tests you. So that's what I ended up sort of all the way rolling into. And I ended up doing a tour of Afghanistan. I then got asked to work with the SF. So I was working with the SAS, SBS. I ended up doing a couple of tours with them, Op Olympics, and then Afghanistan for the final time, and then I came out.
And like, was there a big kind of like drop off in regards to like the number of people that you were like joined with compared to like that
Yeah.
actually got through? Because I'm sure there's probably only a small number that actually progressed through, even from just like sticking it out and just thinking, actually, I can push this.
The attrition in the military is unreal. Like once you're in your unit, you generally people stay. But off the back of basic training, about 2 years in, most of the guys that I was in with had left. They just had enough of whatever it was they were doing. For me, I just kept trying to challenge it, kept trying to sort of push, like, what can I do next? What can I do next? And that's the great thing we had with the army is there's always something to do. If you get bored in your role, right, I'll become a diver. Great. Then once you become a diver and you're bored of that, right, cool, I'll jump out of planes. Right, I've done that now. Cool, what should I do next? I ended up, when I left, I was a snowboarding instructor, a ski instructor, rugby referee, all these mad things just because it was there and available. Like, you can just do it.
Yeah.
But some people just didn't really pick up on that and got bored, left, thought the grass was always green on the other side.
Yeah, because I suppose kind of people's interpretation of it, they probably watch like SAS, Who Dares Wins, that kind of thing. They kind of get that thing about it, but not actually it is a kind of that career in the long standing thing, and actually what you need to be kind of building from when you go in to kind of when you start, like when you finish and that.
Camp's completely different to being a soldier in Afghanistan or on tour or at war. There's two completely different things. Like, when you're a camp soldier, when you're in camp, there's rules you have to follow. There's a whole myriad of things that you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And admin as well. Like, the admin's insane. But when you're actually on tour, you're doing the job that you're actually there to be doing. And that's what a lot of people don't get to go do. A lot of people think, I joined the army, it's really dangerous. But 95% of the job roles you do in the military aren't anywhere near dangerous.
So it's kind of just preparing for that actually for what you're building up to. It's just that short snippet of being fully prepared. And I suppose actually, you can tell me if I'm wrong with it, but like, you almost probably need to think in the mindset of the enemy. So how would they do it? Where would they be putting these things? So you kind of can be tracking and planning and whatever. And
that was a sort of the main part of my job when I was doing the search stuff. It was, if I was this terrorist, where would I hide it? What would I do? And Northern Ireland really helped us out with that, because we got to experience that before Afghanistan. Hence why the British bomb disposal community is a lot bigger and better and more well regarded than anywhere else in the world because of Northern Ireland. But yeah, I mean, we were getting taught stuff. We were getting taught how to be a terrorist, basically. So then when we go into an area, we can think, how would I do this?
Yeah.
How would I attack me right now?
But how do you plan for, like, say, if things don't go right? So like you're going around and you're tapping your foot on the ground to see where the bombs are and that. Like, do you do kind of obviously disaster recovery, that kind of thing, but how do you plan for a bomb going off in kind of whether it's kind of disposed correctly or not? But how do you kind of
it's just drilling,
train for that?
Consider, like, before you go on tour, you do months and months and months of like operational training, and you'll practice CASEVACs all the time in a million different scenarios. I mean, when it actually happens, it is one of those, everything just happens. You know what you're doing because you've done it a billion times before in training, and it becomes that muscle memory. And I think that's the biggest thing that people get out of the army if they spent enough time there, is the ability to drill something continually over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. When shit goes wrong, that's one of the things that the army is good at. And I mean, with the coronavirus pandemic now, me owning my own company, that's one of the things that really helped us out in being able to pivot every time that something changed. I own a gym, so our rules changed on a second by second basis at times. I was getting told one thing on a Saturday and then one thing on a Tuesday. But that ability to be able to stop, quickly think, pivot, and get it out to market is exactly what I've done in the army.
Yeah, and I think kind of like when I did the video with my friend Sam Wood about, he's the footballer, and it's kind of those kind of careers, they do have that a short lifespan for whatever reason. Obviously, in the army, you can obviously continue into kind of more of the operational side of it. Was that never anything you was really kind of interested in? You did your time, or was it other opportunities that came your way that made you shift off?
Well, when I joined the military, my dad constantly said to me, "Have an exit plan." It was something he always said. He was one of the reasons why I became an engineer, because it was you can leave with qualifications.
Yeah.
As long as you're continually getting qualifications, at some point you need to leave the military. At some point in your life, you have to, whether that be through injury, whether that be through retirement, whether that be just because you don't want to be there anymore. But at some point, you will need to leave and you will need to have another career. So when I joined the military, my plan was by the time I'm 30, I would leave. And then that gives me enough time to start a new career, get up and running, and get stuff moving.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always my plan to leave, and that's why I was constantly chasing some qualifications and always trying to do something. But when I was in the military, I was all in. I knew I had a plan to leave before I was 30 because I didn't want to bring up a family in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I was all on it. Like, I would go anywhere and do anything just because I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just sort of got a point now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like with anything, you kind of what you're learning as well throughout the kind of your career and that. Even like when Elon Musk said, like, just because you've got a degree, you can't always teach stupid. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't breed intelligence. It doesn't breed like life experiences and stuff like that. Which, to be honest, you can put onto a CV, but it's not going to really bring it to life, kind of who you are and what you can do.
Yeah.
And I think it's like with anything, if you can then apply what you've been doing and kind of transitioning that in, because even obviously with your gym and that, which you've been kind of almost like building that empire, and what you've had to be involved with like COVID and that, how that's kind of impacted and shifting how you're coaching, how you're teaching, how you basically making sure that money's still coming in and that. But obviously with the kind of the roadmap that's in place, hopefully that's going to be kind of progressing through and see some kind of like endpoint with it. And I suppose from kind of yourself and that, would you, with kind of what you've learned going into kind of like the military and stuff like that, how would you kind of almost like steer people from a kind of a career perspective? Because for myself, if I knew what I knew now, I would have gone to university, done more of maybe like an IT focused type of qualification. I wouldn't do coding because I'm not that kind of focused on that, maybe like project management or something like that. But if, for instance, you didn't want to go through the education route, but the army or whatever, what would you kind of like recommend or suggest?
It's funny, I was actually sat down with someone that left the military, like literally left last week. He was a Marine, and he come to the gym just to have a chat about stuff, and he's a bit lost. He doesn't really know what to do, because like, the problem that the military has, or veterans have, is when we leave the military, like the world's at your feet. Like, you can do anything, but the problem is you have to start from the bottom. But for us, we've been in the military for 6 years, 8 years, 20 years, and it doesn't really. You think, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. Why am I starting at the bottom? Why do I have to start at the bottom? And what employers, especially from my perspective, when I first got out and was looking for jobs, they don't really care about that. They just want to see the qualifications, which I think is changing now. Like with us, when we hire people, I'm not really too interested in their qualifications, as long as from the insurance perspective we're covered. As long as I can see that they can do what they can do and they've got a proven record, I'm happy with that. I mean, I applied for a few jobs as a manager and a couple of different things, and they kept saying to me, "You have no experience." I was like, "Well, I led a team of like 13 to 60 blokes in Afghanistan while I was getting shot at and blown up, searching for IDs. I'm sure I can do this."
Yeah.
But it's not that difficult. But the transition. I mean, when I got back from Syria, when I went out to Syria and I was contracting out there, I was leading blokes that didn't speak my language. We had one translator that wasn't really good at English anyway, but we managed to build a rapport, and I was managing a team of people that had 2 different languages than me. They couldn't speak to each other. They couldn't speak to me, but we still managed to come away from there with hardly any casualties and done a very good job. But then trying to translate that to an employer or in an interview, or no, over a CV is where it's really hard. Once you get into an interview, talk to someone, it's great. But then one of the answers I actually got back from a thing was, they said, "Oh, you'd be perfect for this role, if not slightly overqualified, but we'd love to have you. But on your CV you don't have the experience.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's that almost that backhanded like compliment, isn't it? Because even when you actually putting down what you've been involved with and what has been your responsibility, what have been some of the achievements and that's kind of how you need to kind of put it. And what you put down on pen to paper, some people take that as gospel. They read it, they see it, and that defines kind of who you are or whatever, which it isn't the case. There's a lot more to it, and there may be a lot more other things that you've actually been involved with doing, but at the time when you're trying to kind of like narrow it down, put it on pen to paper, you're a bit like, is it right, whatever. And I think it's in some ways when you do get through the door, either speaking to people, whether it's an interview or whatever, then you can kind of like open up about it. And actually people buy from people fundamentally. Like if you're in an interview and whether you kind of been like a software developer or whatever, in the first few minutes, you know, if you kind of bought into that person, is there any kind of like engagement with them? And if not, whatever they're saying is going to kind of go over your head. So it's just about just shifting the approach that you take to engaging with these people. And like when I was made redundant last year, it's quite demoralizing. Like you look on LinkedIn, you go to apply for a job and there's already been 400 or 500 applicants, and you're like, right, what else can I do to kind of get through it? Even in regards to kind of like your experience and that kind of thing, you know what you want to be like promoting, but until you kind of get that opportunity, then you can open up about it. And actually, if those organizations are taking that steer where it is coming down to they're using that as almost an excuse, would it be right long term for you anyway? Because in your mindset you'll be thinking they're already thinking that way, how can we kind of like influence in that? And you're just gonna kind of take time to evolve and that side of things. But I think organizations are getting there. If you like a Google and a Facebook where you're getting 10,000 applicants coming through, you can use it as a filtering process. But if you're not, you need to be kind of just seeing a bit of a bigger picture and actually seeing kind of what is in front of you, really. So I suppose to say
we've got a really big sort of drive at the minute for employment of veterans. I was in a call 2 days ago, and there's this armed forces covenant that businesses can sign up to, and you can like it basically is exactly what we just said then, like looking at the person rather than the CV. So really, if like you get a CV and it's got a vet, like you can see that they're a veteran, give them the benefit of the doubt and get them, even if they're not fully qualified, give them the interview, because at the end of the day, some of these soldiers have been through things that people can only imagine. So if they can do that and still maintain their job and discipline and get it done, imagine what they can do in normal life.
Yeah, definitely. And the kind of that commitment as well, with kind of like actually they're fully engrossed in actually what they're going to do. They're going to be fully kind of like almost I'd say kind of like in with that organization. They're going to give 100% to it. They're not going to be flaky. They're not going to be kind of just like skipping to whatever opportunity comes their way. And it's kind of getting that kind of involved in that. But it's I think it's just about kind of hopefully kind of sharing these kind of messages and stuff like that, which would just promote it and stuff like that. And I think what we could also then look to do is, I suppose, talk about in another one about kind of how you've obviously what you've experienced and how you can kind of move forward from that. Because whether you're in like the emergency services or obviously the military and stuff like that, or any life experiences, is going to shape you. But being able to kind of see the positives in it, because obviously it can get kind of very very difficult now, which I've got no kind of even understanding about what that would kind of be, but each person's experience would be each to their own. But and I really appreciate you being able to catch up on that. And I think we'll definitely have some more conversations on a few other topics that you want to discuss and that, and go from there.
Cool.